Okay, so what you're going to do is enter your data into a spreadsheet. Hopefully you all know how to do it at this point. You have your distance in the header column and then your trials in each of the other columns. In the last column, what we're going to do is calculate the average of each. You can insert a formula or just click on the box, hit a plus sign or equal sign. It'll pull up your optional functions and then you hit select average, select insert function and highlight the boxes you want to take the average of. Check. All right, of course the average of zeros is zeros, but you can drag your formula down. In numbers, it's a little yellow dot at the bottom. And I'm not sure what it's going to be in Excel. Then you select the data you want to create a graph from, and it'll automatically use your header column, in this case the distance, against the time that you entered. Okay, from here, you're going to choose a line graph. You're going to manipulate your settings. So you choose the axes. You're looking at the x-axis now. Okay, you're going to tell it to do a grid line to your axis line, the axis name, a grid line, and you can choose how heavy you want that line. I don't like my grid lines very heavy. Choose your y-axis. Same thing, you're going to need your axis name and your axis line. Then go back to your chart. You want a title for your graph. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we're just going to make this look a little nicer. So we are going to edit our title name. Well, that's labeling our line. Okay? I'm messing around with this a little bit. Not sure what I'm doing here. Maybe I decide I don't like it. Anyway. So back over to labels, double click, it'll highlight your text in blue, type over it what you want. Remember that the y-axis is your time in seconds. Make sure you always put a unit. Your x-axis is going to be your displacement, your distance. And again, remember your units. In this case, we are doing meters. And don't forget, you do have to convert all your measurements to meters. We had all our measurements in inches. I think it's easier to go from inches to centimeters to meters than anything else. Okay, so you can also put in a trend line. Okay, that's under the, you can see that's under the series tab of after you click on your chart. Your trend line just shows you like what it would be if it were a linear equation. If you want to get really fancy, you can show an equation. Though in this case I didn't, because if you look at your y-intercept, it's not 0 and it needs to be 0. Excel will allow you to set your y-intercept at 0 and then choose your, and then look at your equation. But numbers does not allow you to do that. Okay. And that's all you need to know for that graph. Though it looks like I'm still hovering over title. Maybe somebody asked me something. Anyway, you double click on your title, it'll highlight in blue. The title of your graph should be distance. You do distance with respect to time or distance. In this case, I just did distance versus time. Heck, I don't know, time versus distance. I looked at the book, that's the way it was labeled, so that's the way I did it. And that's how you do your initial graph for that stage. Continuing on, we now need to do our velocity versus time graphs and acceleration versus time graphs. So we're going to create a sheet that looks like this. I hit a plus sign, I created a new sheet, new worksheet is what it's going to be called in Excel. And we're going to label our title first. In Excel, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. Their spreadsheets are set up a little bit differently. All right, so I labeled it velocity calculations. Now we need to copy and paste some data. We're going to need our time, our average time off of this chart. Now, we can't do a direct copy and paste in numbers. What we have to do is a copy, and then we're going to paste formula results. So select the boxes you want to copy. Then you're going to go up to the, then you're going to select the top box where you're going to paste it. And here it is, paste formula results. It's on the edit button. Okay, we've got that in there. And we're going to need our distance. All right, so we're going to copy those distances again. Oh, you see me struggling. You gotta make sure you grab the right little spot. You want that white box and numbers. All right, then you're gonna paste. And again, other spreadsheet programs are gonna be really, really similar, whether it's Google Sheets or Excel, they're all gonna be really similar to this. Okay, so I found the delta symbol on a Mac. It is Option button and J, and it'll type a delta for you. So delta D, we're gonna have a delta D column and a delta T column. So we need to figure out how to do that. So remember delta T, we are going to subtract some things, right? It is going to be distance 1 or distance 2 minus distance 1. So open up a formula, just hit an equal sign. So that's going to be our distance 2 minus our distance 1. Boom. Obviously 3.81 minus 0 is 3.81. Drag your formula down. Now we're doing our change in time. So we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to take our formula, hit a plus sign. I'll bring up your formula box. Click on your two boxes. Oops, I didn't want that one. Highlight the one I didn't want. Click on the correct one. Minus the one I do want. Hit a check mark. Boop. Drag your formula down. Okay. So now that we have our delta D and our delta T, I'm going to go back and I'm going to put in our 0. Because we know at 0 seconds, our velocity is 0. So on the very top line, I'm going to go back in and add some zeros. You'll see me get there. All right, next column we need velocity. And what are the units on your velocity? Meters per second. Don't forget your units. All right, type those in. And how do we calculate velocity? It is delta T divided by delta T. So we are going to, like I said, went back, put in some zeros on that top row. All right, the next thing we're going to do, hit that formula button. You're going to hit a plus sign or an equal sign. It'll pop up your formula box. Our delta T divided by our delta T. Check mark. Because that is our equation. I apologize. People were asking me questions while I was trying to do the sheet. All right, same thing again. We're going to drag that formula, find your yellow dot, drag it down. And that's way too many sig figs, too many digits, right? So we want to do sig figs. So format my cells in this column. I can tell it how many decimal points I want. In this case, I want 2 because I feel like roughly that's about how accurate our measurements were. Okay. All right, now we've got some velocity. So what to do, what are we going to do next? All right, like I said, I was going to put some zeros back in. That's just for simplicity as we're graphing. Okay. I'm just making my graph look a little bit nicer, so I have room to look at my chart. Okay, so now one of the things I found is that if you get rid of the calculation, the numbers that aren't going to be on your chart, make a new table and then copy some things in. Okay. All right, so we are going to title this one, actually, velocity versus time, because that's what we're going to want our graph to be. So we want our velocity to be our x-axis. You remember that? Okay. So we are going to copy and paste. Remember, it is paste. Go to your edit button, formula results. Don't use the shortcut, whether you use Control V or Apple V. That's the keyboard shortcut. That does not work here. All right. Copying my times. These were entered numbers, so we don't have to do that. Now it's just going to be a straight paste. There we go. So you can use your shortcut there because it's not a formula result. All right. Highlight your data that you want to use for your chart. So I highlight both boxes, go to the top chart, choose your line graph. All right, there we go. Time versus velocity. And we're going to go back in. Remember, we're going to change our chart. We're going to add a title. We're going to put in our axis name and our axis line for both the X and the Y. Check axis name, check axis line. There we go. I like my grid lines. Lower the weight. Make them look nice. There you go. All right, going back, I'm going to label my axes and give them a title. Oh, look at me, I'm adding yet another table. Guess what this table is going to be for? Acceleration. Changing the title of my table. So I'm going to do some more calculations in that first table so I can keep that last table I made nice and neat, like the velocity versus time table. So this is going to be my delta V, because remember the acceleration is your change in velocity over your change in time. So we need a delta V. So this time I'm only going to do 2 points. So we are going to, again, pull up your function box, hitting a plus sign. Oops, I did subtraction. Yep, that is what I wanted to do. Sorry, I kept doing the wrong operation earlier when I was doing this. Okay, so now we have 2 points. And now we're going to do an acceleration column. And remember that your acceleration, again, is delta V over delta T. And you can't divide anything by 0. So your first delta V value is going to be that second line. So it's a little bit off because of the way I set up the lines. This is how you're going to do it. So again, plus sign, function, insert function, something like that. And you're going to do delta V divided by delta T. Click on the boxes you want. Boom. All right, and drag your formula down. All right. Back up. There you go. Drag down. There you go. That's how you do it, over that yellow dot. So there's our acceleration. Notice that our acceleration dropped off. Oh, and by the way, this is all made up data, so you can't copy it. I did use Miranda's data she put in, but I changed the values just a little bit. So I did. That way you can't copy it directly. You are going to have to enter your own data and do your own calculations. So this is, like I said, acceleration versus time. We're going to go back up to the top. We just need our time buttons, our time values, so we're just going to copy those. Control C to copy, or Apple C to copy, paste those, Apple V or Control V. And then we're going to go back up and we're going to highlight our acceleration. And remember that we're not going to do a straight paste this time. You can Control C it, then you're going to come back down to your boxes. Oops, that didn't work, right? Because I did a regular paste. Go back, post formula results. Okay, so the way I did this is when we graph it, now what we're going to have is at 0 when we start off, we are going to actually have an acceleration. That's the initial acceleration. And in Module 2, we'll get in a little bit deeper into that. And there you go. It's just a straight line. Now, being as we had, that's an interesting graph. I didn't notice that before. Why does it appear our acceleration is increasing? It's not though. 0.67 is bigger than 0.17. I don't like that graph. Maybe don't do the acceleration graph. Okay. All right. That's it, folks. Oh, throw in your labels, but you should know how to do that by now, having done it with a few others. Okay. Yeah, maybe don't do acceleration.